All set? All right. Hello and welcome to another edition of Trust Me, I'm an Idiot. Today we are back working on the Infiniti. We're going to be installing an amp and a subwoofer. I've got my helper today. This is my son Xavier. Let's get to it. This will be pretty good. Trust me.
Yeah, what you plan and what takes place ain't ever exactly been similar.
This was modded up and built for the back of the Mini I used to have until I killed the engine, of course. But it'll work great in here because I like trunk space anyway, so having the low profile will work well. However, this is too wide to fit back in there on the floor where I want to put it. So first thing we need to do is unmount the amp and then kind of cut this thing down to size. We'll end up just kind of rotating this 90 degrees. So let's get through that. All right, so we need to get this unmounted. Just like that. I've got 4 screws, 1 in each corner, holding it to the wood. And Xavier here will go ahead and take those out.
Did you put it in speed mode?
I will when I edit it. Do these.
Yes. Hey guys. You know how to edit it. Screws over there. You may need a little thing for screws.
Yeah, we might need a dish. Hey, go ahead.
Should I get a dish after this?
Yeah.
Dish.
Okay, next step is we need to measure our spacing for where we want to put it. Sorry, it's a little dirty in there, but we'll vacuum that out later after we're done working. So we'll get it, and it's like 31¼ inches will give us a good fit with just a little bit of wiggle room to make sure it's not, crammed in there. So 31¼ Awesome. Okay, so now we need to trim this to length. Now I'm reusing this because I need to have this module be pretty easy to pull out when I do autocross with this car. You can't have anything kind of loose in the trunk. I don't really want to bolt it to the car itself, mainly because there really isn't a really good spot to do that with this particular car. A lot of people will stick like the amps and everything under the seats. I don't really want to do that either because there's not a whole lot of room under these seats due to all the motors and everything else that it's got. And then also, we do live in Wisconsin. We do have a lot of very, very wet winters, and I don't want any water next to the power lines running to the amp. So into the trunk it goes. I need to make it easy to remove. Obviously, mount it to your situation will probably work well for you. So you need to measure up what was it, Xavier? What was the measurement? How long was it?
Oh, what?
Do you remember?
No.
I think it was 31¼ So we're gonna measure that, and I got it. 31¼ Make a little cut here with a knife because we need to trim there. And of course, I don't have like a paint pen or anything for that.
Needed.
Over here, 31¼ on this end. Another slice there. See if I can actually see it. Of course, I can't see that either. So remeasure, make sure we're in the right spot. Now the box here obviously looks pretty small because I've got the low profile sub. They are a little more expensive than regular full-size ones, primarily because most people go with the regular full size. But in the Mini, that wasn't too much of an option because I wanted to have at least a backpack's worth of cargo space. And since I've already got it built, it sounds great. I'm just going to reuse it. So there's my mark there. All the marks over here. Ready to cut. All right, time to cut. Got my circular saw with plywood blade because we're cutting plywood. And of course, safety glasses, safety ear muffs. It's quite loud, isn't it?
I've glasses, so.
You got glasses. All right, can I have you stand back because you don't have safety glasses?
I need safety, but
Okay.
I want safety. safety glasses. like we
Perfect.
Looks like we have a perfect fit.
That's right. All right, we're gonna need a few things to hook up our amp and the sub. First thing is kind of like a wiring kit. This will have a power wire, a ground wire, and then a signal turn-on wire, which is when you turn the car on, it tells your amp it's time to turn on as well. You're gonna want to pay extra careful attention to the gauge of the wire that you're using. You need to match that to both the amount of power that your amp is drawing and the length that you're running. So while 8 gauge here is plenty for this fairly low power amp and the distance that we're going, for your application, make sure that you check to make sure you're running. Thicker the wire, the better. Go over thickness if you can, but otherwise, yeah, make sure you double check. Also, because our car is running a speaker system and has a stock head unit, we do not have preamps out. So we're going to need a line level converter. And what this does is take the signal that goes to the speakers, when we're tapping into their speakers, converts it to a line level that the amp understands, and that way we'll get a proper level without it varying a whole lot based on how loud you've got the volume knob and everything else, and it won't freak out too bad. So, and then we've got some extra speaker wire that I have laying around to tap into those rear speakers and also connect the sub to the amp itself. What we need to do is find a way to get power from here, this very corroded looking positive terminal on the battery, through the car all the way back to the trunk. So I've already got all the sort of plastic decorative panels that hides all the mechanical stuff out of the way. I think I can see the sort of in-cabin air filter down there. I'm hoping I can maybe pop a hole underneath that to get into the passenger's kind of footwell area, and then I can run along the side of the car and get into the back. But first I need to get this battery out of the way. Plus, whenever we're doing anything with power in a car, we want to disconnect it. So I've disconnected the ground already. That of course will probably reset most of my radio stations and memory seats and all that everything else, but it's easy enough to set back if the computer doesn't remember it. Next we need to get that positive terminal off, get the battery out, and see what we can see. Okay, I think I found the way through the firewall. So after we clean up that very corroded connector in a little bit, what we're going to do is, you can see here is the in-cabin air filter, which looks perhaps dirty enough that I need to clean. Great. But anyway, right next to it is this huge kind of wiring harness. So I know I've got a bunch of wires that are going into the cabin already, and right kind of here is an open space that's next to the air intake thing for the in-cabin air, and also the wire harness, because I'm going to probably drill through there, and I don't want to accidentally drill into wires. So let me show you on the inside where that's going to come out. Bunny riding shotgun today. So inside here is that sort of airbox thing for the in-cabin air, and next to it, shine that light up there a little bit. Let's see, might be hard to see, but up there next to it there is a nice open space that we can use. I apologize if I'm in the way. There just really isn't a great angle to film this from. So let's go ahead and go right there. Light in. So we got the cable into the car. I basically just shoved a whole bunch through until it was able to be seen and kind of down under here, so I could grab it and pull it the rest of the way through. Now we need to run it all the way back to the trunk, and that means removing trim panels. These little kicker plates, mine have aluminum sills, so there's a little wire there. For the most part, you can always pull these off pretty much with your bare hands. Otherwise, you can get a plastic trim removal tool. I wouldn't recommend using a screwdriver because the hard metal is going to be significantly harder than this soft plastic, and you'll mar the finish. But yeah, so I need to pull that off, kind of find an area to run the cable back. Looks like I gotta maybe pull the carpet back a little bit as well. And it should be the same story all the way back. You do trim panels. Here's one of those trim removal tools I mentioned earlier. These are available at your hardware store, usually in a pack of 4 or so. So we'll start bare hands. These might be a little more of a trick because they're big and I've got a seatbelt in the way. And I did have to reconnect the battery so I can move the power seat forward so I can get access to this area. But shouldn't be too bad. Down underneath all of this trim, and then I pulled out the back seat, and we're going to basically go underneath the seat and then into the trunk under here. Back seats, actually, the bottoms usually are exceedingly easy to remove. You basically, on pretty much every car I've ever seen, grab the front edge, pull, and you're out and away. This one does have these sort of safety things you got to pull, so if it sticks, maybe check for those on the front edge. But otherwise, yeah, usually it's just grab and pull. So that, be able to finish up getting this positive wire all the way back into the trunk. Well, as you can see, there is no red wire poking through. It's because it's behind this piece of carpet. So we're going to have to remove some of that. But that is actually okay. That's all part of the plan. We need to get behind here to find some metal to attach our ground wire to. Cars have really cool circuitry in that the whole body and frame of the car is ground. So if you're hooking up a secondary radio, or in our case an amp, I mean, you pretty much just find some piece of the body to hook into for your ground and you're good to go. But we also need to get under here, under the there, to get to our rear speakers to tap in for the audio feed. So got to take all this carpet out anyway, so not a problem. Let's get to that. Power stuff done for the most part. Up front, got my inline fuse holder. Fuse currently pulled. Make sure I disconnect that a little better out of the way. So I'm shorting things out. And then that connects underneath this red cap to one of the posts. Aha. So that gives us power, and it runs all the way to the back. Here. Right here. So I've got my power wire. Turn on the light for you. Alright, and then the ground wire is connected to the frame. There's actually another ground bundle sort of behind the seat. I just tied into that. But used cars are fun. So the previous owner of this vehicle put a sub in it already. And obviously it wasn't in there when I bought it, otherwise I wouldn't be bothering to do all of this. But the traces of what they did, they left behind. So if we take a look, you got these connectors here. A little more light on that. Haha. So these connectors here tapped into the speaker wires. So I know at least, well, these 4, I believe, maybe, might be speaker wires of some sort going over somewhere. I still need to map that out. I'm going to get on the laptop in a sec and try to figure out where all those go. But the more interesting thing is, get out of the shadow, right here is a sub. This car already had one. But as you can see, yeah, it's there. It's disconnected. Cord's right here, tied up neatly out of the way. So what the owner did was they installed their own sub, disconnected this one, and left it disconnected after they sold it. So, of course they did. This whole thing may actually be entirely pointless because it has one. But seeing as I spent all day already putting all the wiring and everything in, I'm going to finish up anyway. However, to give us a little more oomph, because that is a fairly small 10-inch Pioneer sub, I'm going to reconnect that one. Progress being made. I found the power wire so I can get when the amp turns on for the car, which is, yeah, our amp will turn on. And then I got power, obviously, and ground, and the blue wire is that signal turn on. Now I am tapping into the audio cables, which were helpfully pre-tapped, sort of, and marked for everybody else, the previous owner. So I have my line level converter secured to the ceiling, my audio out from that. I'm leaving this side open because there's some gain adjustments over there. And now it's time to tap in and connect these wires to these wires. Using these sort of T-tap things instead of soldering this time. Usually I solder them on just to make sure they never ever come loose. But I'm going to give these a whirl, and they seem to have worked last time, so we'll see how they go. Got everything all hooked up. That's going to need to be fixed, of course, a little bit later, made a little more pretty. We got the input in, power, signal, and ground. Now it's all time to turn it on and see how it goes. First, we got to go back up to the front, put our fuse back in. Fuse is in. Let's turn the car on and see what we can see. Yep. Gotta be in with the key. Alright, accessory mode. No power. Shit. Alright, here's the situation. So, on the tap there for the signal wire, I get power to that little metal piece that you can see right there. However, when I follow it down and then connect it to the power terminal there is no power. So I need to redo that tap to get power flowing through this blue wire, which must be because that tap did not get that good of a connection. So we'll redo that, and that should hopefully solve our problem. Redid the tap. Yeah. We'll go touch this wire to the metal plate inside. I've got the other positive lead turned on to the thing, and we have, I don't know if I can get it to stay on the plate. There we go. No resistance. Resistance is futile. So this should work to get it turned on the amp when we turn the car on. Hopefully. Let's give it a shot. Victory! It is on. Now, just have to make some adjustments, get everything buttoned up, and it should be good. But that is how you install an old-ass amp, a low-profile sub, into a 2009 Infiniti M35. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.